Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're going to love it.
Okay, let's go.
That actually reminds me of a guy that we went to college with. His name was Brent Reese. And he would do this thing where he would go, skillip lip lip dip 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 dip. I really don't even know what that was from. I'm going to call on some of my Alpha Delta brethren to send me a note as to what was that all about. It was called Skillip-diddy-doo. And it would be like Skillip-diddy-lip-dip-dee-dip-dee-dip-dee. And then sometimes we would end it with times two. I don't know what the times two was either. Well, alrighty then. All right, let's get into it. So, what is going on, man? What is going on 100 days into the Trump presidency? Wow. I can't even believe it's 100 days. I'm so glad we got those Epstein files. Oh, wait a minute. We still haven't gotten the Epstein files. What else? I think it's been a mess. I really do. Now, I will say, this is funny. My Trump friends are like, dude, why are you so down on him? And honestly, I'm down on him because I just don't think he's walked the walk. And I'll be very honest, I think there was a Jedi mind trick that took place that really swayed definitely the Arab American vote. Although, what's funny? The situation obviously in Gaza, people were not going to vote for Biden if he had stayed, and then by default Kamala, just because, again, for those people, myself being included, by the way, that's been a genocide. It has. And again, if you don't want to call it a genocide, I don't care. It's been a killing of a shit ton of innocent women and children. How about that? Let's not call it a genocide. Let's call it a mass murdering of a shit ton of innocent women and children. There we go. That's a softer way to sell it. So they were not going to vote for Kamala anyway. But I will say, I do think that, again, did Trump pull a fast one on everybody? I don't know. I really don't. I do think, similar to what Jay Slay USA talked about in that episode, I think that assassination attempt was absolutely a warning, for lack of a better way of putting it. But who knows, man? He came out the other day. He was like getting on Air Force One or Trump Air or whatever. And he said, Netanyahu is not going to pull me into a war with Iran. And so, you had a lot of people saying, okay, well, hey, that's pretty positive. And so the question becomes, I don't know. Is the guy playing 4D chess? Does he have, a humanitarian aspect to him still in regards to the people of Gaza? He did say in that same interview, he said the people of Gaza are suffering. They're doing this. Now, again, actually, let me see if I can find the clip.
Gaza came up and I said, gotta be good to Gaza. Those people are suffering. We gotta be good to Gaza. We're gonna take care of that. There's a very big need for medicine, food and medicine, and we're taking care of it.
He's saying we've got to be good to the people of Gaza, food and medicine, we're taking care of it. Now, here's the second part where she asked him about Prime Minister Benji Netanyahu.
When you spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu the other day, did that come up at all about access and humanitarian aid going in this place, or?
Very hard.
Pushing the Israelis?
We are.
To open up more access?
Very hard to get food and medicine into Gaza.
How did the Prime Minister respond to that?
Well, felt well about it.
This is insane. How are we even having a discussion about getting food and medicine into people? I'm gonna call total BS on that, on Trump. And I'll tell you why. It's the exact same playbook as Biden. It's the Biden playbook. They're literally using the Biden Gaza playbook, which was come out and say a bunch of, critiquing things about Netanyahu and Israel and all of that, and say, oh, they've got to do better. They've got to let in humanitarian aid. Dude, it's our money. It's our money. They're using all of our money. And so if you really want them to stop doing something, it's very easy. It's like Ronald Reagan did in 1981 or whatever. So again, I'm going to call BS on that. It is that playbook. It's the public expression of concern, for the Palestinian civilians, while at the same time you're continuing to send aid. Anyway, I know some of you think I'm hung up on this, but I'm really not hung up on it. I just feel awful. I mean, there was an image the other day of a 4-year-old boy or a 5-year-old boy who had been thrown from one building onto the roof of another building. I mean, it was a graphic image because 10 feet away from him, it looked like it was his dad, just dead, dead. And by the way, when you see the civilians dead, they look like zombies. I mean, they absolutely look like, I don't know if it's because the body's been sitting there a while, so they've lost their color or what, but they look like absolute zombies. And then literally right on the other side of the roof, there was another child that had been blown in half. So there were two parts of that child. Honestly, I don't know how anyone can look at that and just not be crushed, no matter what anything it is, what nationality, what color, what religion, what race, what creed. Gosh, I'd feel awful if it was, another kind of animal, let alone a human being. It's just brutal. And I've said this a long time ago, and I'm going to say it again. I make myself look at that stuff because if I don't, it just becomes it's almost like you get numb to it. And I don't want to get numb to it. I don't want to get numb to anything like that. That is not something we should get numb to. It's just terrible. So anyway, that's that. All right, let's see. God, I almost feel bad doing this. This is going to be like the biggest topic change ever, but I'm going to do it because I promised I'd talk about pop culture more. All right, let's talk about Bill Belichick, the former coach of the New England Patriots, who has made a lot of changes in his life. First of all, he's coaching college football. I think he's coaching at North Carolina now, but that's not what is the biggest change. Coach Belichick does have an absolute baddie as a girlfriend. The problem is,
the other change for Belichick is 24-year-old Jordan Hudson, his creative muse, as he writes in his book.
Make sure that's the...
Jordan was a constant presence during our interview.
You have Jordan right over there. Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
All right, so this was a CBS Mornings interview with Bill Belichick and then his 24-year-old girlfriend, Jordan, who, again, is an absolute baddie, but she might be batshit crazy as well. Although maybe not, who knows? But anyway, I mean, it's definitely an odd relationship. And so listen to his answer when actually this answer is totally on brand for Belichick when they're like, how do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
How did you guys meet? All right, pretty innocent question. I mean, he's a famous guy. She's a 24-year-old baddie. How did you guys meet? I mean, I'd expect I don't know, maybe at a party?
Not talking about this.
No?
No.
It's a topic neither one of them is comfortable commenting on, though Hudson has recently posted about it on Instagram.
You joined InstaFace, as you put it. I love that.
InstaFace. I love that. That's kind of like when you call it the interwebs. Instead of calling it the internet, you call it the interwebs.
There's some great pictures of you and Jordan, where you're a fisherman and she's a mermaid. It's charming. It's a different side of you. What's the reaction been like?
Okay, these pictures on InstaFace are absolutely hilarious. Like, can you imagine, like, Tom Brady, Gronkowski, Julian Edelman, all those guys that played for him? And by the way, if you're not familiar with Bill Belichick as the head coach of the Patriots, he was just a hard ass. And he was like somebody that, it was like pulling teeth getting him to converse and to talk about things. And so, again, this next part is on brand, as well, where what did the guy ask?
What's the reaction been like?
What's it been like?
To have these different sort of photos. There's another one where you're doing, I know you're not into meditation or yoga or Pilates. You're balancing Jordan on your feet and she's doing kind of the Titanic pose.
Honestly, I wish Jordan was like 44. Then I think it would be kind of normal. I mean, Bill Belichick is like 60 something. Actually, how old is Bill Belichick? Bro is 73 years old. She's 24. Man, if she was 44, this would be totally normal and we could get more of this.
Yeah, so I'm on some of those social media platforms, but I honestly don't follow them.
All right, needless to say, the internet is on fire with this, and especially on TikTok. Here's one pretty funny little take.
Is anyone else starting to feel a little scared for Bill Belichick? Anybody else see the CBS interview this morning where his 24-year-old girlfriend wouldn't let him speak for himself? In case you missed it, the 73-year-old coaching legend was being asked a multitude of questions. They brought up his book, they talked about old coaching positions, new coaching positions, and towards the end of the interview, the interviewer asked about his girlfriend, 24-year-old Jordan Hudson, and how they met. Immediately, Jordan, who's sitting over here watching them like a creeper, shuts the question down and says that he is not going to talk about that.
All right, if you see the clip, I mean, she was a creeper. She was like in the corner. And then like when he asked, how did you guys meet? That's when she's like, we're not gonna talk about that. All right, very weird, but very on brand for 2025. It really is. Actually, my buddy Brandon texted me something and he's like, I said, it's very on brand for 2025. And he wrote, that's the most 2025 shit ever. That's funny. That is the most 2025 shit ever. All right, Bill Belichick. You know what, coach? Listen, if you're happy, be happy. Be happy. She is a baddie. She is absolutely a baddie. I mean, it's a little weird. I'm not going to lie. It's odd. You're 73. She's 24. It's odd. It's not normal. But you know what? When it comes to relationships, I live in a glass house, so I don't throw stones. I do not throw stones. All right, next topic. All right, you know what? I don't think I've ever played this clip, but I did want to play it because, man, the 9/11, what do I want to call it? Case, not really case, but man, there's a lot of talk on 9/11. People are going back and researching that, and they are not letting sleeping dogs lie. How about that? There's a lot of content coming out, and obviously that was another set of files that the Trump administration were supposed to completely release, and they haven't released the real files, but they're never going to release the real files. They're absolutely never going to release the real files. But here's an interview with Larry Silverstein. Many call him Lucky Larry, and he was the guy that owned the Twin Towers and had just purchased the Twin Towers, I think 6 weeks prior to 9/11 happening. And so let's start this interview. This was on 60 Minutes. And by the way, so Lucky Larry every morning would have breakfast on the 91st floor or whatever the penthouse floor was of World Trade Center 1, okay? Every single morning. I repeat, every single morning.
Where were you on September 11th?
I was home, and the only reason I wasn't where I was every morning subsequent to the 26th day of July, my mornings were spent usually at a breakfast meeting at Windows, an 8 o'clock breakfast meeting, Windows, the top of it, right? And then going down to visit with my tenants, my new tenants, at the Trade Center, getting to know them, understanding their problems and so forth, ascertaining how we could service their needs better, and which is one of the first things you do when you acquire a property. You begin to meet your tenants and start talking with them. And so my mornings were spent at the Trade Center, and then by noon I was back uptown. And so that particular morning.
All right, tell us about that particular morning, Lucky Larry.
Because I have light-colored hair and fair skin, and I'm an annuity to the dermatologist. My wife, God bless her, had made an appointment for me at the doctor. And I remember dressing to go to the doctor. I'm finally saying to my wife, I said, sweetheart, I've got so much to do downtown. I got to cancel this. I've got to go downtown. And she said, you're not going to cancel this appointment. You're going to the dermatologist. You know, having been married now to the same woman for 46 years, you get this sense of determination on occasion, their voices. And I said, okay, yes, dear, I'll go. And then just minutes later, received a telephone call to turn on a television set and witnessed this horrendous circumstance.
I mean, seriously, that's why you need the love of a good woman in your life. I mean, Lucky Larry's wife, if it wasn't for that nagging wife saying, no, you are going to go to the dermatologist this morning, Larry. All right, seriously, that is insane. That is insane. Now, the part of the interview that I wasn't able to find is not only did Lucky Larry not go to the World Trade Centers that morning, but his kids, whom also worked in the building, they happened to also not be at work that morning. So Lucky Larry and Lucky Larry's kids, they also luckily were not at World Trade Center 1. Man, what are the odds of that, huh? What are the odds of that?
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
All right, Neo or Matrix, or what was Lawrence Fishburne's name in The Matrix, his character? Morpheus. That's right, Morpheus. By the way, The Matrix is definitely a movie that if you are ever sitting around on a whatever night and you need something to watch, it's interesting to watch it again. I did it a couple months ago. It hits different. It does. It hits different when you're sort of, I guess paying attention the way we are these days. That one, Wag the Dog, that is actually really good to watch again. The Truman Show is another one with Jim Carrey. That's really interesting to watch it again, under this different lens that we now have. So The Matrix, Wag the Dog, Truman Show. Oh, and by the way, if you have not watched Oliver Stone's JFK, that is definitely worth watching again, especially with all the JFK stuff going on, because again, it just hits different, man. It does. Those movies hit different. All right, next clip. All right, I played you guys a clip from Whitney Webb on Tuesday's episode. It was the opening clip of that episode. And I didn't comment enough on it, but she really talked about the uniparty concept. And again, like I've said before, you guys know I believe in that concept. I do think the uniparty does exist. I think the career politicians are part of that. Honestly, I did not think Trump was part of that, but the way the first 100 days of this administration have gone, I'm definitely revisiting that. I'm revisiting that, but that's a bigger discussion, and we've touched on all the things that are they just don't make sense, man. They don't add up. So many things about what's taking place does not add up. But listen to this take from Whitney Webb, and this is in regards to AI and, really its ability to control the internet. And I think it's interesting because obviously I'm a huge fan of artificial intelligence and these tools, and we've talked about it. And gosh, you probably have implemented many of the tools like my man Shane did, and I do. Oh my God, I'm literally, the things I'm doing with ChatGPT these days are they're just amazing. And I'll share more of that in a second, but give this a listen.
They're trying to put AI in charge of the internet, and not just in charge of censoring what's on the internet, but also having AI make the lion's share of online content. So supposedly by 2025, generative AI like ChatGPT is going to produce like 96 or something % of everything you read online, which means mainstream media journalists are going to be like completely replaced.
All right, I will say I think there's definitely a lot of truth to that. I'm already seeing so many AI generated podcasts that are basically pulling from AI generated news. And I think Perplexity, the one app I've talked about, has partnered with 11 Labs, the other company I've talked about that does the AI voices. And so like they're using the 11 Labs voices to basically create podcast episodes of what's going on in the news that has been curated by Perplexity. They're trying to put me out of business, but they don't have the nuance that I have, nor the funny jokes, nor the funny clips, although I'm sure they could get all of those too. Damn, I'm going to be out of business. But anyway, I think what she's saying definitely has merit. All right, let's listen to the rest of this.
Wow. And so when you have AI both like producing and then curating, i.e. censoring everything, then AI dominates the information environment. And whoever programs AI and stipulates like what information is okay and who isn't has like unprecedented control. And when you consider that most people today get their information from online or, digital sources, that's unprecedented. But also, you're manipulating people, how people perceive reality. And that obviously translates into how people behave.
She's super smart, man. She really is. Manipulating how people see reality, and then that translates into how people behave. That makes total sense. Now, I will say, I think all of this can be combated by, quite frankly, just common sense. And also, I don't want to say being wary and skeptical of everything, but to an extent, being wary and skeptical of everything. Like everything should not be, you shouldn't accept everything on the surface. That goes for everything, including what I talk about. Honestly, I'm being real about that. Fundamentally, whether it's AI generated or whether it is a reporter for the Wall Street Journal that wrote the article. Again, I think I've said this before on this podcast. If not, I know I've said it on social media. Bottom line is, whatever piece of content you are consuming, that piece of content was created by, let's say, another human being, or was created by artificial intelligence. And let's consider artificial intelligence another human being. So even if it's AI creating that piece of content, that AI had to have been programmed in a certain way, okay? That AI is being powered by algorithms that have been trained in a certain way. So anyway, I guess my point is that, whether it's an article in the Wall Street Journal or New York Times, or something you read on the internet, or honestly, something that ChatGPT tells you, if it doesn't make sense, if you're like, oh, that's kind of interesting, that isn't what I expected, there's a chance that it's wrong. I've actually found many mistakes that ChatGPT's made. I'll try to note the next one. But for example, a lot of times actually when I'm watching a series or something on Netflix, and let's say I want to know something about the plot line or one of the characters, it's interesting. I will ask ChatGPT, and it's made mistakes before. I remember I asked it about some Game of Thrones information, and it was totally wrong. It was completely wrong. And then I would correct it, and I would say, I don't think that's right, ChatGPT. I think that, for example, Tywin Lannister, blah, blah, blah. And it would come back and say, oh, you know what? You are totally right. That was my mistake. So my point is, all of these things make mistakes. All of these things can create narratives, and don't let go of your innate, gut instinct on things. One thing I will say about ChatGPT is, man, I am really using it so much these days, but God, it's like, I need to be careful. It doesn't make me dumb. Seriously, like I'm getting to the point where I almost like do everything with ChatGPT when it comes to, so many things. And I need to be careful about that because, again, I think that it's kind of like, here's another good analogy. How many phone numbers do you currently have memorized? Probably not many. I have my mom's number memorized. I've got my brother's cell phone memorized and my own cell phone. That's pretty much it. Think back to like the early 2000s or the 90s. I mean, I probably had a dozen of my friends' landline numbers memorized. I really did. I had so many people's numbers memorized, or like people's addresses. Like, think about how many addresses you previously would memorize or know how to navigate to without using your navigation or without using your Google Maps. Again, these technological advancements and improvements are incredible and they make life so much more efficient. But I will say they definitely dumb us down a little bit. They make it to where all of a sudden, if you don't have navigation for some reason on your car, you're like, oh my God, how am I going to get anywhere? I mean, seriously. Or this is funny. I drove a friend's car the other day and it didn't have a backup camera. So I went to put the car in reverse and I was like, what the hell? It's no backup camera. Oh my God, how am I going to go in reverse? Like, are you kidding me? How am I going to go? Honestly, that thought crossed my mind for like a half a second. And then I'm like, what is wrong with you? So I just turned around and then I put my arm around the passenger seat, kind of like Dukes of Hazzard old school style. And I parallel parked the car without using a camera. God forbid. Oh my God. Seriously, think about that. Okay, let me see if there's anything else for today. The last thing I wanted to read you guys is I have a whole series under the banner of Manufacturing Consent, which was a book Noam Chomsky wrote. And if you don't know who Noam Chomsky is, he's like an American philosopher, historian. The guy's definitely sharp. I know he taught at MIT for decades and he's authored like hundreds of books. But the one book of his that I really like is called Manufacturing Consent. And it has a really good methodology that it talks about. I'll read that entire methodology on another podcast, but I did want to end with, one of the last slides, or actually a quote of his. I'm sorry, that is also part of the book, but it's separate from the process of manufacturing consent. Let me read this to you. It says, or he says, the general population doesn't know what's happening, and it doesn't even know that it doesn't know. That second part slaps hard, as I said on a Instagram story post. I'm going to read that again. The general population doesn't know what's happening, and it doesn't even know that it doesn't know. That seriously is incredibly true. I think there's so many people that don't know what's happening, and they don't even know that they don't know what's happening. And that is taking place right now. That's probably a good summation of the first 100 days of the Trump presidency. More to come on that later. And by the way, for all my Trumper friends, fans, dude, don't be mad if I'm hard on them. I mean, we should all be hard on them. Absolutely. They talked the talk. Now they have to walk the walk. Yes, good things are happening at the border and some other things. But again, they're not delivering on the key things that they they were voted in office for. They're just not. And I'm going to point those out in future episodes. Okay, by the way, Friday's episode, I am going to try to get this interview that I did with this guy named Paul Davis. I will try to get that edited and run it. It's a little bit on the longer side. It's maybe an hour and a half. So anyway, if I can get that done for Friday, that'll be good, because if you need to break it up over the weekend, this guy is super interesting. First of all, he has gone through like he's lived 9 lives in the past 4 years. And actually, he's a perfect example of somebody that really was drinking the Trump Kool-Aid and is now questioning everything. And it's very interesting to he's a super intelligent guy. He's a lawyer. And he was a J6 guy. So he went on January 6th. He didn't go into the Capitol or anything like that. But again, he was there on January 6th and was part of all that. And then also represented a lot of people that were part of all that. But his transformation, actually, I don't even want to call it a transformation, but his journey is pretty incredible. And it's honestly a testament to, quite frankly, playing the cards that are in your hand, and quite frankly, changing your opinion and mindset based on what you're seeing, instead of just blindly continuing to follow a certain path. Now, again, I don't want to be that tough on Trump or the Trump administration, but I do think that you'll get a lot out of this episode with Paul. You really will. It's very interesting. He also grew up like hardcore Christian Zionist. So he talks a lot about like that education process and the way it was for him growing up, and then kind of how he sort of came to his own truths in that regard, which, by the way, I think a lot of my listeners, a lot of you guys probably grew up Protestant or maybe Catholic or Roman Catholic. If you're from the United States, you probably did. So anyway, I think this will be a really interesting episode. All right, that's it, everybody. Keep the feedback coming in. I really do appreciate it. And call a spade. And I will try to get Paul's episode for Friday. And then I promise I'll try to get an episode done for Monday. If not, I'll talk to you guys on Tuesday. All right, take care. Oh my God, I forgot to even talk about this. I actually got my first sponsorship deal, and it's with the company that does my sound engineering. So that's why in some of the episodes, you're going to hear a little intro from Alphonic and a little outro from Alphonic. So that was actually cool. First sponsor deal.
That was a great way to end it.
This episode was brought to you by the new book, Deep Shallow Dive Into You. Available now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in hardcover and paperback. Don't forget to sign up for our new mailing list on our website at deepshallowdive.com.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.